Eckhart.
Michael.
Geraldine. Julia. Joe.
Tony. Jacinta.
Yep.
Josh. Saroja.
Jane.
Tess.
Maureen.
Dean.
And you guys? Stella.
Stella.
Stella. Yes. And Bob.
What is it, Bob?
You comfortable there, Peter?
No, but I'm fine. No. Grab this one behind you. Don't worry about it. I'm perfectly okay.
Some of your eyebrows.
Just joking.
He's fine. But thank you. He just wanted to sleep.
I know what's keeping you sitting there.
All the ones who didn't are going in the bad book.
Yeah, we can replay.
Yeah, it's got it. It's on camera now.
Well, good to see you all. And you're getting the same old, no different.
Take it yourself.
I'll take my ears off. Can't teach you anything, and I can't tell you anything. All I do is point toward and ask you to look where we're pointing to see for yourself. Because that's the important part. It's only you, yourself, believed in self, that can understand it. Because when you realise what we talk about, you'll see that can only be that. We talk about what they call in Hinduism Advaita, non-duality. That's what Advaita means, non-duality. They try to describe non-duality by saying it's one without a second. In other words, not two, only that. So, if that's all there is, who is there that can teach you anything or tell you anything? Each and every one is a unique expression of that pure intelligence energy or life. And that's the great mantra, Maha Mantra. I am that. And people, and this has been investigated, don't understand the that they're talking about. But when you look at it, you'll know or see that everything is that. Because that's the chair you're sitting in. That's the floor, the carpet on the floor. That's the room itself. Everyone in the room is that. And everything outside in the manifestation is that. Which we discriminate with the word. We learn words and put the labels, different labels on the one essence that expresses everything. So I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not talking to any mind. I'm not talking to the body-mind person that you believe yourself to be. I'm talking about that I am that I am. And each one of us knows I am. And I am is not relating to the person. It's relating to that sense of presence. Is there anyone here who's not aware of being present right now, right here, and right now in that presence awareness? That awareness, you're not unaware, that awareness is... That awareness is ever fresh and ever new, timeless, spaceless, bodiless, mindless, without beginning or end. It is the absolute, or a lot of people refer to it as God. But God is just another word or a label we put on it. And when we use that term, we think there's some greater or higher power that we've got to become one with or worship or pray to or whatever. But it's the very life that's expressing through that pattern that you call yourself that body right now. It's that life which is enabling the breath to happen, the heart to beat, the words to appear, to come up, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotion, the hunger, the thirst. It's that life, essence or intelligence energy that's patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything. You and I and all this manifestation are things. The chair's a thing, the floor's a thing, the birds, the bees, everything else are things. And they say it's the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming, appearing and expressing, and it is no thing. Got no shape, no form, no pattern. So everything is the no thing, and the no thing is everything. But what we do, we divide it with the word. As soon as we put a label or word on it, we separate it. And how many words were you born with? You realise you weren't born with any words. You didn't learn any words till you were about 2 or around that age, 2.5, a bit earlier, a bit later. When your parents, fussing around you, started calling you Little Johnny or Little Jane or Little Billy or whatever your name might be. Put that label on you. And then you learnt another word, I am, and you say, I am Little Billy or Little Jane. And I looked out there, the capacity of reasoning was developing then, and you looked out there and you said, well, that's not Little Johnny, that's not me, or that's not I. And so you felt separate from it. And with that sense of separation came insecurity and vulnerability. You didn't know what it was, you were insecure about it, especially as a little child. And you became fearful or anxious or unhappy about it. And then later on we learnt more words and went to school and learnt more words. And nobody ever told us you are prior to the word, you're prior to the thought. You're not that person they tell you are. You're a little bit more than that. But we're too far gone then to believe it. We kept, in schools, they kept reinforcing that you were this person, this individual, this separate entity. And the belief became stronger and stronger. And see how it functions. It functions dualistically. And when you look in the dictionary and see the definition of belief, the definition of belief is an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason. We haven't reasoned it out, we haven't stayed with it long enough and thought about it. We've taken it for granted. I am Billy or Little Jane or what the name might be. Haven't questioned it at all. And so then there comes up for this believed in entity, fears, anxiousness, depression, guilt, shame, all the psychological suffering comes about because of this belief we are separate. And we're unhappy about it. And we want to become happy. That's the Wei Wu Wei tells you. And he said, "Oh, why are you unhappy?" Because everything you say, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. And he says there isn't one. We believe we are this self, this personal self. Yet it clearly tells you in the scriptures, there's only one self, one Atman, one self. And that's the pure life essence or intelligence energy. But now we've got this personal self. And we're trying to make this person happy or become realised or recognised as true nature. But the very trying, what's trying? That believed in personal self. And it can't do anything at all. We believe we can, but we can't. And so we stay locked in the conceptual image and not knowing any different. We follow along with some of the religious traditions. Some of them started off all right with recognise the true nature, but then whoever was passing it on becomes self-important, and things that he couldn't work out or do, he puts concepts on, and you've got to do what I do. You've got to meditate, you've got to pray. You're a sinner, and all these concepts on. Instead of taking away these conceptual beliefs, coming back to the one essence, we're adding to them. And it gets worse as we go along. But some of us start to recognise or resonate. There's got to be a little bit more to it than this. Why am I suffering all the time? When it tells me that this God is one and it's a saviour, and it'll fix me up if I pray to it and worship it. Because you can do all the praying you like and all the worshipping, and you're not going to become what you already are. How could you? And that's what they tell you in the ones that really understand it. It's the great mantra. I am that already. That is what I am. And what is that? Innately you know that, what that is, because you say that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the tree, that's the flower, that's these other folk, these other people. You see, everything is already that, which we put the word on, the label. And that's the problem. It tells you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. That's where it all seemingly began. And that's right with you too. That's where it began. You didn't have any words until you learnt words from your parents. And that's where the problem started. In the beginning was the Word was with God. That's believed in. And the Word was God. That's all God is a word, another word. We started label. All things were made by him, by the word. Look around you. Anything in this room that's not got the word on it, carpet, floor, tree, you, me, this, that, lights, all got words. And there was nothing made that was made without the word. And when did you begin? If you go back and look into it, I tell you, you were born at such and such a time, such and such a date. Can you remember that birth? There's people who'll say they remember, but with a little bit of common sense, how could you remember when you didn't have any words, you didn't have any language? How could you say I was born at such and such? So you don't remember your birth. But you say, I was born at such and such a time. And you're taking on that belief. And we keep learning concepts and words to add to it. And getting more entangled with it as we come up with stories and beliefs about this, that and the other. Instead of seeing ourselves as the pure intelligent energy, the pure being, we've taken on this persona. And that word persona comes from the Latin language, meaning mask. So we've got a mask of concepts. I'm Bob the Australian, I'm a good fellow, this, that, now. All concepts, all words that I've added onto it and taken it to be real. But the word is not the thing. Look at the word water. Can you drink it? Can you swim in it? Will you drown in it? You can't. The word fire. Can you heat yourself with it? Can you cook with it? And will it burn you? It won't. So when you look at this word I or me, you might recognise something about yourself that you haven't seen before. Because that sense of presence, that awareness of being present right here and right now, you'll say, I am. Because you've learnt those words, I am. But instead of saying, I am that they're talking about, that one essence, you say, I am Bob or Bill, whatever your name might be. I am this person, this separate entity, this individual. And it goes on from there. And you don't get anywhere because the person is not reality. It's just a conceptual image, a label, like all the other words we've got. There's no word that is the real. But we take ourselves to be this person, this body, mind, individual. Well, if you investigate that, am I this body? Am I this mind? That idiot up there keeps saying you're not the body and not the mind. Is he right or is he wrong? I'll have a look. Well, you say my body. You say my house, my car, my coat. And you know you're not the house. You know you're not the car. Well, in the same light, maybe you're not the body either. But you believe you are this separate entity, this individual, this person, this body-mind. We'll need to investigate and have a look. Saying my body, what's this body made up of? When you investigate, and that's an important thing they tell you also, that the false cannot stand up to investigation. All these erroneous or false beliefs that we've got, if they're really looked into, investigated, if they're false, they'll fall apart. And if they're the truth and you know them as truth, they're there for you. But if they're false, and we're believing in all these false ideas that are causing all the problems, we won't get out of them by continuing to believe in it. False can't stand up to investigation. Well, investigate this body, my body. What is the body made up of? You realise the body's made up of elements. Consists of the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, the fire, the body temperature, the food you're eating. All these things are elements, and all those elements can be broken down into subatomic particles, and those subatomic particles can be broken down into pure energy. So take the water out of your body, see how long you'd last without that element. Take the body temperature, you'd soon get hypothermia and die. So the water, earth, fire, get out of space if you can, get off the earth. So when you look at it, you see you can't separate yourself from those elements. To break down into the elements, is you can't see those elements as separate. They can all be broken down into subatomic particles, into pure energy. But they tell you that it's all absolute. The great perfection is absolute. Absolute means there's nothing added to it, nothing can be taken away. It's just as it is, right here, right now, as it is. Not as it was, not as it will be, but right in this seeming presence of it. It's what is. What is means it's unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. No preference, no partiality, no comparison. See what happens then when left as it is. You mightn't realise it, but there's transient. It's constantly changing. It's changing right at this moment. There's not one or two cells dying, but there's thousands of cells dying in it right now. And they're being replaced. Are you replacing them? I've got a few cells to go in my heart, or just died of here, or a couple. Got a lot that need to go in the brain. It's not happening. But life itself is replacing those cells. That life or intelligence energy. So that all those cells broken down into energy, so all this body it's absolute. You can't divide it or split it. What can you add to absolute? Nothing. What can you take away from absolute? Nothing. Nothing to be added to it, nothing taken away. So what would that mean? Wouldn't it mean it's just as it is right now? Just as it is. Right here, right now. And if you're not the body or the mind, have a look at the mind. Are you the mind? You say, my mind. Again, just like my coat, my car. Well, have a look at this mind. Show me your mind. Anyone show me a thing called mind? Well, you can't. There is no such thing as mind apart from the thought word, mind. But we got to, like my body, we got to know my mind. But what is mind? Investigate it. See, the mind is nothing but thought. If there's what's wrong with right now, if you don't think about it, see, There's no thought there. What are you without the thought? You haven't disappeared. It's not the end of you, not the finish. Your heart's still beating, you're still breathing. The life is still there. But this thing called mind, if you're not thinking about it or not forming words or concepts or ideas, it's just a sense of presence there. It can't be labelled, can't be named. But that life energy that's rolling the earth around the sun, causing the seasons to come and go, causing the tides to come in and out, causing the patterns and planets to form, implode, explode. It's beating your heart. It's growing your hair in your fingernails. It's causing the thoughts, feelings and emotions to come up. All life, but using these patterns we call bodies to express through. In its absolute form, nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away, so nothing could be said about it. So it needs a pattern to express through. And it's expressing through all these different patterns, shapes and forms. And we put labels on them and describe the descriptions on them. But the description can never be the described. The map can never be the territory, another way of putting it. And what we're trying to describe right now is not its description. But if you follow what the description is pointing to and see for yourself, you can't do anything else but recognise. Like the Buddha told you, it's a cognising emptiness. We think we cognise the emptiness, but we don't. It's the emptiness that has that capacity of cognising or knowing. And he made the statement then a couple of thousand years ago, and he said that emptiness is form. And then he turned it around the other way and said the forms can be nothing other than the emptiness. So you and I are forms, the chairs are form, the carpet, the rooms are form. It's all emptiness, appearing as something solid and substantial as a form. So the form can be nothing other than the emptiness, and emptiness is form. So that's what we are as these pattern shapes and forms. We are the absolute, the cognising emptiness in which these pattern shapes and forms appear through, and we're taken to be what we are, form. But what about the absolute? Can you add anything to the absolute? You can't. It wouldn't be absolute. Can you take anything away from absolute? You can't. It wouldn't be absolute. Nothing can be added to it, nothing taken away. Recognise that you are that absolute. From that point of view, who could ever be superior to you? Who could ever be inferior to you? And what would you want from anybody else? You've already got a lot. It's all there. So that's why you need to look at it. That's why we're taking this poor me, I'm separate, and they tell me I'm a sinner, and I've got to pray and do this, whatever it is,
Sadhana.
sadhana, meditate, pray and do all these things to become that. Have a look at that word becoming, and then have a look at time. And when you investigate time, you see time's a concept also. Is there a past if you're not thinking? When you're in deep sleep, can you say there's a past or a future? When you're relaxing here and the thought falls away for a moment, can you say there's a past or a future? You can't. But when we believe it, you'll say, yes, I was in the past. Well, investigate. Go back and live yesterday. Or go back and live 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. Can you? You can't go back and live a moment in the past. But you can recall it. And you can only recall it for a little while. Because there's lots of past life you don't remember. You don't remember your birth. You didn't have any words. And lots of other things that come up and let go of. And if you don't recall them, they're gone for good. But a lot of it we make stories about and keep them in mind as memories. And some things need to be remembered. But a lot of the rubbish and crap that goes on about past events and experiences are gone, over and done with. They're dead. Why regurgitate them? Why attach to them again? Form stories. As Kipling said years ago, made the statement, he said, a dog will return to its vomit and a pig will go back to its wallow. That's what we do. We go back and return to all these thoughts, feelings and emotions, regurgitate them, and they bring up all sorts of, they get worse. Habitually, because they were reinforced day in, day out for years. Now the habit needs to be broken. What can be broken? How can I break it? Keep reminding myself, what's wrong with right now if I don't think about it? And just let the thought be for a moment. Don't attach to it and take it on and start a story with it, because that's what happens. When we attach to this thought or feeling, we say more about it, add other things to it. And what comes up, we relate it to the feelings and ideas that the previous thoughts have formed. Or this is a fearful one. This is an unhappy one. This is very depressing. And because of that, and we've been doing it constantly for so long, it becomes more than what the fresh and new spontaneous thoughts come up. So we're in more anxiety, more stress and more fear because of that belief than we should be. What is wrong with right now if you don't think about it? I can't say anything at all about it without a thought. But it still is. It is what it is. The false concepts and ideas disappear, but the reality is ever fresh, ever before your eyes. Unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Definition of reality is that which never changes. Thoughts, feelings, emotions are constantly changing. So if you see that, believe in that definition, know what the definition is. It's never changing. What is it that never changes? Isn't it the sense of presence, the knowing that you are? And isn't that how they describe it in the scriptures? Being, knowing, and loving to be. Not being this or that, or knowing this or that. It's just the pure being. Negate your beingness. Try and tell me you're not. Try and tell me you don't know that you are aware. You're not unaware right now, you must be aware. There's lots of stuff you don't know in the thoughts, the concepts. But can you negate your beingness? Call God the Supreme Being. You call yourself a human being. I am this miserable human being. Take away the word human. Take away the word supreme. I've dropped them. But have I stopped being? No. I'm still here, still present, still aware. I can put other concepts onto it, but do I need to? The breathing's happening, heart's beating, life's going on. And the Buddhists tell us perfect's the same as the absolute. And the Buddhists give it in one sentence there. They say the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Saying what I just did. I was seeing, hearing, tasting, and I wasn't conceptualising any concept, idea or thought. These words are coming out of the mouth, and I'm not giving them any forethought what to think or what to say. If they don't come up, well, I'll get lost. I don't say anything. It doesn't matter to me. But the ancients, down through the ages, there's always been someone that's looked into it, hasn't been satisfied with the way things were, with the miserableness and the suffering and all of it, and been moved to look a little bit deeper and seen the same thing which they made all these scriptures in. And there's only been a few that's known it in the old days, because the ways of communication weren't very good. And they could only pass it on to one or two in the village, and not everybody would want to hear it. And some of those that would recognise it and say, well, if I pass this on, I'll have a lot of power. People will believe I'm something great. So I better put a few rules and regulations on it. Tell them if you don't do this and do that, you'll be a sinner, a bad boy, or you'll cause all these concepts and ideas. And some of these things I had to do, so I'll tell them they've got to do that. And people try to become more than being. The ordinary being, become the supreme being, because that's what they're told. And they set these people up as saints, sages, saviours and seers. And what are they doing? They've separated it all again into different states and stages and moved away from the one essence, the one life. And the greatest of these saints, sages, or seers is God, one they believe is God. Not realizing that God is just a word. But what are you basically? That pure life essence, if you like to call it that. You are that animation, that life, that being. Take the life out of that body, what do you got? A corpse. And that corpse, before it breaks down and rots, still got its eyes, ears, heart, lungs, kidneys, liver, all the organs are there, the brain, they're all there. But they're not a bit good to it without that life essence running through it. And a good analogy to that is the computer. You've got a computer with all that wonderful information. But you can run those keys over it as much as you like and that mouse over it and punch the keys. If the power is not turned on, what are you going to get out of it? Nothing. So if the life is not animating this body, that life essence, what good is it to you? It's a corpse. And it's going to continue to break down and rot and go back into the elements again. Came out of the emptiness, the cognising emptiness, pattern, shapes and forms seemingly appeared, and they go back into the emptiness. And it's still only that. So, while the animation is going on in that pattern you call you, you are the life. When somebody around you dies, that pattern is broken down and it's lost. But where do you think the life energy, the energy went? Where else can it go but back into the energy where it came from? Because that is all that there is. That's what we need to investigate and look at. I heard it in many different ways from many different years, in different places. And were locked into it for many years, couldn't grasp it until it finally took me into all these different places where I thought I was going and I thought I was doing. But I realise now that I've never done anything as that person. And all the bad and troubled times, it took me through those also. And I had to go through that because I was too stubborn to look at anything until it broke me down to nothing. But then when I began listening to it and understanding it, it took me where I needed to go, needed to be, where it was pointed out and realised and recognised. But even then, there was a recognition that came about, but the old habits continued to come up for a while. But they'd lost their hold. And instead of reinforcing by going into and attaching to them, making more stories, I was able to let the stories go, detach from them, let it just be as it is. And over the years it gets less and less. The life is still going on, longer than what it should have. Should have been gone years ago. Yes.
You're still here.
Everything's unfolding as it should.
Exactly.
Yes, well, And that's it. If people weren't sitting there, there'd be less reason for me to live, wouldn't there?
No.
And it's more for a reason to you to listen to it and realise you can get an extension of that life. You can get more pleasure and joy. That is more your natural state. And this suffering that went on for years, it's not necessary at all. It doesn't have to be there. Why are you unhappy, as Wai said? Because everything you say, think and do is for yourself, and there isn't one. Realise that. There just isn't this personal self. You are the absolute self. I am that. Be what you are. Not what you believe yourself to be or think what you are. I am. Know that for certain. That amness is not was. It's not what will be. It's what is right now. Isn't that a fact? Well, away you go.
Thank you, Bob. So beautiful.
So this is, we don't have any comments. We have welcoming messages and good morning to all dear one messages and lots of love from New Zealand, but we don't have any questions. So this is the time when the mic goes up to you. And we invite you to interact, ask questions, comment, share, deepen up, tell us what works, what you heard, what you didn't. So don't be shy with your questions. There's a lot of people who are not in this room and will be listening to the replay later on who can't ask those questions. You might just give them a voice and speak up whatever. Yes, Julie.
I don't know if it's as much of a question as it is more of a...
Speak up.
I don't know if I have as much of a question as I do. I'm just sort of yammering, or like I was thinking. It happens. I was thinking about this idea. I was telling somebody about how nothing could be different than what is. If anything could have been different, we have a belief that things could have been different. I could have, you could have, we could have, if then. And we have all these ideas of what could have been different, and if it could have been different, it would have. So, like, in order for anything to be different, something would have had to be different, and it didn't. So, there it is. What is exactly as it should be. It couldn't have been different. And then I was just kind of pairing that with what you were saying about the great perfection. You know, nothing could be different. Nothing could be added. Couldn't happen. Nothing could have been taken away. No, that's I don't know, I was just sort of seeing how, like, you know, what is. Another way to look at what is perfect. Or what I am, or what you are, or what everything is perfect, is because if it could have been different, it would have. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I'm seeing it, as perfect.
Yeah, beautiful.
Everything is different and how it appears. But in its reality, it is not.
But actually embracing what Julia was just saying, to actually realize that the past is gone, is dead, and it can't be changed. And cutting off all the ideas, if only I've done this, or they did that, or if only, that actually shuts down all the, like, probably, potentially, half of the stories we tell ourselves to overlook the reality. You know, like speculating, what if I chose another career? What if I chose another partner? What if I became this? What if I had an idea? Julia often says about starting Facebook in 2002.
Yeah, I should have done that. Why did I not start Facebook in 2001, make it the way it is today? God, was I stupid? Like, seriously, God, how could I have? Even the guys he stole it from couldn't have. Right? Apparently, I mean, there's a movie that says Mark Zuckerberg stole the idea of Facebook from some guys at Harvard.
No, he actually paid for it, I think.
Well, no, he had to pay in a lawsuit because they sued him, right? So that was how he paid. But yeah, they apparently had the idea, but their idea was only for Harvard University students, a social network for Harvard kids. And his idea was different. He was including all universities and then the world. And so only he could have done that. And only I could be talking right now. So I'll stop.
Yeah, so what's... go.
Just to follow on from that topic, I mean, I think we've been taught to try and do something about it. That's the usual way, is to do something about all the problems and, you know, psychological tendencies we have. That's what we've been taught. Try and modify it, try and change it. We've been taught to try and change things and do things from the mind, from the concept of a me. And it's like a habit, you know, to fix something we think that we have to do something about it. But this is totally the opposite to that. You leave it as it is because you see that any modification is coming from that same sense, from the mind or the sense of me. Mm-hmm. So it's really going against the grain of what we've been generally doing or taught. You know, this is quite radical in that sense.
Mm.
Or meditate, you know, that's another one. That's a more subtle method of mind, isn't it? To meditate. But then I will become more present. Things like that. Do they actually work? I haven't found that they do. No, it's just that seeing the truth and understanding the mind and, pulling it all apart, as you say, Bob, and then seeing what's actually going on.
I have a friend who wants to become enlightened.
Yeah, that's the usual.
Before I met you guys, I was taught or told, everyone is enlightened, we just tell ourselves we're not. Everybody's enlightened, we just tell ourselves we are not. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you can say that really. Okay, we all are that, but the concept of enlightenment is a concept that people have got an inflated idea about. And, people do believe in their mind. They are that, but there is a strong belief in mind. So, that has to be questioned. Who else wants to say something?
Bob.
Going, gone. Sold the highest bidder.
When we were driving in this morning, we were discussing a lot of different things, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of disagreement and feeling of agreement and all that sort of thing went on.
Speak up, Pete.
Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, none of my ideas mean anything. Like I just throw them all in the river, every single one of them, and it floats down to the sea. And that serves me well because, including the idea of a me, if you like. Although I'm not into that kind of language personally, because I feel like everything is a procession. The best you can hope for in separate mind is a procession of paradigms. So you can talk about and you can talk with people and groove on a new paradigm, a new way of thinking, a new way of talking. And that's not going to be
That's
It's not
beautiful.
going to be
though.
it either, is it?
I like that quote. The best that can happen in mind is a procession of paradigms.
Yeah. And don't get too attached to that idea either. Throw that one away too. And it ain't going to support you or me. And, in the end run, I'm just brought entirely back to this place where that is all there is. You know, I have no words for that. I have no concepts. I just know it. That's all. That's all I can say. And I think all of us would agree with that. Essentially, you know what we're talking about here. And it isn't anything very complicated at all. It's just one thing. Thank you.
I'm not sure what I'm going to say, but when I went to see Papaji years ago, the words of praise he gave to somebody was to say, he's thrown intellectual knowledge into the Ganges. And that, I mean, of all the things there's so many things you forget, or I forget in a life, that
Papaji has thrown intellectual knowledge to the Ganges.
he said as words of praise about somebody, he has thrown intellectual knowledge in the Ganges. And I thought intellectual knowledge was important, so to hear that was a mark of accomplishment or praise, it always stayed there. But I find I can't get out of my mind, and like at the moment I've sold, or the family sold a house. It's been in the house for 50 years, and I can't get past regret, because I bought it at different times, but in the end I didn't buy it. But there were times when it was mine and then it wasn't, just through mediation. But I just noticed this tendency to, which I guess everybody's been referring to, this regret, going back. It's so hard to just not regret. Can you say anything about that?
I didn't hear half of what you said.
She's saying it's so hard for her to not regret. Can you say anything about not regretting?
You can regret as much as you like, but what good is it to you?
No, it's not useful. So just every time you see it, let it go.
Yeah.
Or realize simply that sense of regret or any emotional response from the body is not personal. That you are beyond the habitual emotional response of the body-mind. You are the awareness of those responses. In this way, you actually watch the body-mind responding with regret, with sadness, with joy, and there is a subtle curiosity about that behavior, that responses. You're learning about that body-mind machine, which usually you consider to be yourself. But now, as you're learning about it, this is an object in the awareness. So that's not you anymore. There's nothing wrong experiencing any sort of feeling. If you look at the natural world, you will see the animals are experiencing different, grief, sadness, whatever we label those emotions. They actually just experience responses. And they don't have a story that response shouldn't be there. I've seen those cats that are roaming around, just contemplating their own responses. The cat gets scared by the cat from the neighborhood and comes back and puffed up and tail up. It's just sitting and experiencing it fully, the surges of energy going through the body. That's fascinating. It seems like the cat is fully present with whatever is happening on that bodily level. What we do, we habitually say, oh, this is me, this is my problem, and I have to solve it, and this is because of that, and that one is guilty, and that shouldn't have happened. And what Julia was saying, what if it only happened the other way? what we do, we betray the present moment and trade it for the story about it. Because what's presently happening is that surges of energy. And what is not happening is that, oh, they shouldn't have done this, blah, blah, blah. So it's really about returning home to what is happening and putting your heart with what is really happening. And story is also happening, but it is happening on top of what is happening in the sensory world. And we only have limited capacity of processing information. So if the attention goes to the story, it misses out on the heartbeat, on the breathing, on the hearing, on the feeling, on all of it. So if we actually prioritize what is happening tangibly in the sensory world, then our processing capacity doesn't have to go to the story about it anymore. And in this way, anchoring, falling in love with what is, with the curiosity of what is, openness and experiencing, stabilizes. And in this way, regret can be a blessing. Any feeling, any emotion, anything that is happening is an invitation to recognize that although it may feel very threatening and very personal, it is just a passing phenomena in the consciousness that I am. I spoke with I had one-on-one yesterday with someone who had a good clarity. I mean, for last couple of years, Bob and I, we have different sessions, and he's got no issues, but like marinated in the non-duality, the mind comes up and says, well, yeah, I've seen through it, but who's seen through it? Who has seen that, you should ignore the thought? Who should ignore the thought? And as Bob was saying, okay, or who should be aware of the regret? And as Bob is saying, if you don't think, there is no problem. Well, he says, yeah, I'm not thinking, but there is still that idea. Yeah, exactly. There is still that idea that maybe there is still a me. Ignoring thoughts or watching the regret, maybe there is still that me. Yeah, okay. So whose idea is that? That there is still a me that is personally involved. Who is aware, or what is aware of that idea? Is that idea always there? That sense of things being personal, very personally threatened. Because for the survival of the body, that's necessary. I mean, if the cat is being chased by the dog or by other cats, there's no question, it's personal. It runs for its life. But the idea that it is personal is not there. It's just the behavior, pure response, pure functioning, no idea. And without the idea, this is what tortures us. The ideas are torturing. Like Bob was saying, what's wrong with right now if I don't think? Nothing is wrong. Even if they just sold the house, even if it's really cold or really hot, oh, I'm starving. Even then, without the idea that shouldn't happen, I shouldn't be starving, there's nothing wrong. It's just what is. And that what isness is only wrong when the thinking comes and makes it so. So please, if you feel moved, use it. Use that sense of regret, and also, recognize it as another face of love. Love, attachment, whatever the movement is there, is always coming from that some level of loving care. You love the house and you care for yourself, so there is a regret that, oh, I wanted the best for myself. That's the mind, of course, but it's not an enemy. There is a sweetness in that pattern of trying to always negotiate what's best for me. I want money, I want a career, I want a boyfriend, I want this, I want this. Why? All that behind that desire is the program in the mind, which is to, make this as comfortable and as happy as it is. But it is mechanical. It is mechanical. And the moment it is believed to be the reality, oh, this is me, this is my voice, I want it, this is I, and I suffer. Well, of course, then there is a hiccup, there is a suffering. But if you see that this software is totally impersonal and is totally helpful and sweet, And you notice it as much as you notice all the feelings. And it's like, wow, this is fascinating, amazing. Regret, oh cool. Everything that shows up has its function in the way of maintaining the whole dream. But when you see it this way, it doesn't hurt. But of course, if there is identity there, this is me. I feel that I need to ignore thought. I feel that I need to do something about the regret, or I have to change something because this is unpleasant. All that having to is what Catherine was saying. And by the way, we have a comment here, Catherine, for you. My God, it's like old home week. I haven't seen Catherine in many, many years. Please say that John says a warm hello.
John who?
John. Yeah.
John.
Yes, from Thailand. I don't know if John wants my his last name stated, but this is John who lives in Thailand now.
Okay.
American John, you know.
American John.
John L.
John L.
John L.
Oh, John.
And I just wanted to say, when you're speaking about Papaji, I went to see Gangaji when she was here, and a lot of stuff was said, and a lot of people asked questions, and there was lots of, conversation going on. And the one thing that I took from that was, we're not the story we have about ourselves. We're not the story we have about anybody else. So you drop the story, and that's similar to what Papaji said, in that all knowledge is going in the Ganges. So all knowledge, is the story. The story of me, the story of the other person, place or thing. In your case, the thing is regret. So, so they both said a similar thing, Papaji and Gangaji. Throw away the story, or throw away all knowledge into the Ganges.
Julia.
The mind can be our servant, or we can be its bitch. So there's this idea that this question, or it's really a statement that I've heard Bob say a lot: the false cannot stand up to investigation. And investigation, I think, is using the mind as our servant. Okay, it's a useful use of mind to investigate. And any time I just observed anyway, when there's an experience that's of, discomfort, regret, anger, sadness, or whatever, it doesn't matter. I have found in my experience that it all falls away with the investigation. So, like, if you investigate and you say, well, are you a story of regret? Are you that, or are you that which is aware? There's a question. That's something to investigate. And you can take a look and go, well, I must be that which is aware, because I'm not a story, right? So the investigation, when the false is revealed to be false, the truth reveals itself, I think. And you're just left with back to, I love what she said about betraying the present moment. You come back to here. Because it brings you back to this. It's, that's not, Anyway.
I've got a practical example. I used to work with a client with a diagnosis of about a mentality of 2 years old. And I just noticed when it started to drip, and I'm from New Zealand, it's cold rain there, and it's for 3 days. But and he would just keep walking into the rain and just be like dripping, and he'd be fine. Whereas I'm like, oh crap, do I need to get an umbrella? I don't have a raincoat. And I hate this, I tense up. And it was just an awful experience. And he was fine. So I tried doing what he was doing. I switched off, and it's like, it's just a little bit of wet. It's nothing. So.
Bob, can you elaborate on something about it all started with the word, or nothing happened without the word?
Yeah, from the Bible, on the beginning.
Can you elaborate on that? I think nothing happened without the word, I think you said.
Yeah.
Nothing happens without the word. Well, can you discriminate anything without the word? Can you say anything is good or bad? Like or dislike?
Yeah,
you have a question for it.
Maybe not, but something still happens.
Hmm?
Something still happens.
Happening.
Happening happens, yeah.
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 Even, let's say I'm a 1-year-old, things happen, so I don't get it with a word.
Yeah, but what can you say it is that's happening?
I wouldn't have the words to express what is happening.
Yeah, well there you go.
So life's still functioning. But there's no story about it.
Things are still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I think you mean the quote from the Bible when Bob says, "Without the word, nothing was made."
Exactly. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
exactly.
actually, yeah. Well, the authors of the Bible pointing. So
that's the one I didn't get.
Yes.
Nothing was made without the
See,
word.
without actually having a label on things. As a baby, it sees everything, but it doesn't differentiate between things. So nothing is made to a thing. Nothing is an object. Like the idea of I am here as subject and you are there as an object is really coming only with the language. Without the language, I am the open field of consciousness. Within that field, my hands happen, your hands happen. There is no separation. Only with the language separation comes about, and things are made to an object.
Oh yeah, you mean nothing is made, or made
to an
nothing
object.
is made to an object.
Yeah. What are you sitting on?
On a sofa.
Yeah. You didn't have that word. What could you say it was?
Oh, I'd still be sitting on the sofa, but I wouldn't say it. So nothing is made into an object.
Yeah, come on.
I'm confused.
As we describe things, we use words. Right? So words are labels. I think that's what's being said here. Yeah. We call it a sofa. It's a sofa and has all these past connotations that I realise from past reference, past association. That if I don't label them, where is all these associations? Do you see? They all become one thing. In truth, if I don't call anybody by name, what are we? What are we then? Are we one thing? Yes. I don't know whether you can see that or not.
It's the word that separates and divides. So it divides hot from cold, right? But what Bob points out a lot is it's all really just sort of the same stick, just different ends of the same stick. So there's only the one everything, and then what happens is there's mind, which, by the way, I have kids, and if my kids didn't start using it at 2.5, I would have been worried as a mom, because there's something, Bob, I've heard him point out in the past. I really loved this pointer. I found it helpful. I don't know why. He talks about the eagles, I think, or the birds. The bird can see a mouse in the field 500 feet away. Can you see the mouse in the field 500 feet away? The dog can smell stuff that I'll never be able to smell. The bird can fly. Can you fly? But it's this reasoning capacity that's useful. So it can be used to see with binoculars now. We can make binoculars to see further, or microscopes to see better, or helicopters and airplanes to fly, and we can train the dog to smell. It's very useful capacity. We can also use it to investigate and ask, who cares? Who's the one who's wanting to figure this out? So it's very useful capacity. That said, it's also divisive. It divides you from me, good from bad, good and evil. That's another thing he points out in the Bible. I love this pointer from the Bible. Like Adam and Eve, where were they? They were in paradise, right? And then what happened? They ate from what? A tree of what? Knowing what? good and evil. So before they ate from that tree, they didn't know good from evil. There was a meme I saw on Facebook. I loved it. It was Adam being the world's first lawyer, and he's saying, in all fairness, how could I have known it was evil to disobey God when I hadn't eaten from the tree of knowing good and evil, right? So there's no words. There's nothing differentiating. It's so easy sometimes. I remember like noticing babies, the perfection of infants, you could know so clear, and you look in their eyes and you could just, and I remember at one point, when do we become imperfect? Maybe we've always been perfect and we still are. It's just that what happened is about 2.5, 3 years old, we started having words. You're bad. You're good. You're wise. You're stupid. You're more enlightened. You're not enlightened. You're higher vibration. You're less. It's all in thought. All of it is in words, dividing, making better and worse and this and that and hot and cold.
But why do they use the word made? Nothing is made. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. You have to ask someone who translated the Bible, because
right. It doesn't mean anything in particular.
how it was really said, I don't know.
Oh,
but
right.
it is still a good pointer that it was made, to make something. It is already a thing. You don't make the totality, you make a thing, you make an object, so you objectify. So the word made things into the objective existence. Labeling objectifies them. So it doesn't mean the potentiality doesn't exist, but the potentiality become actualized when you actually learn what things are. So as much as you're right, every pointer, every language could be, you could argue that it could have been said better way, it could have been more clear.
All right, I shouldn't
Focus
on made.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Every question is great. Is to dispel the confusion. You wanted to add something?
Okay,
I say, that Ensing Ming, you read that, did you?
I did.
Well, what does it say there? When no discriminating thoughts arise.
Exactly, that's what it's a discrimination.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
the old mind ceases to be.
Sorry, Bob?
I say that when no discriminating thoughts arise, the old mind ceases to be. You don't see things the same.
Right. I thought it was yet something different in the quotation from the Bible. Thank you.
Tony, can you give us a mic?
Yeah, Josh was going to speak as well. There's just 10 minutes to go as well, just letting you know.
Oh, thank you.
In regards to the use of the word made, what's made is the concept or the label. There's nothing actually in existence, that nothing actually exists apart from anything else, unless the concept is created for it, and then that's attached to whatever this inexplicable experience is, the sofa or whatever. You could say, that's all I have to say.
Could give it to Tony then. Tony.
Beautiful.
Just a brief one too.
Yeah, I was giving an exercise in a workshop once where we just had to go out for 15 minutes and just create random other words or made up words to everything we saw, and we just kept doing that constantly. So it was a nice disruptor to the word meaning something,
So I want to say something about association too. It's amazing to have a look at how we associate things with other things, and put things in a timeline, for example, and make up a narrative self, which doesn't really hold any water when we look at it. The associations can often be very, very illogical too. It's like the mind will, if you decide there's something about yourself, for example, that you are, you're no good for some reason, not intelligent enough, or not good looking enough, or something, then the mind will, it will go out like a raging rabid dogs, looking and hunting down anything it can to associate with that to make it real. And so it adds to the burden of guilt and so on. That's how mind works, I think. And that, just one other thing. Well, that'll do. Okay.
No, you're done. You're not done. Please finish.
I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Keep going.
I'm just like the 6-year-old in my class. Make. I was just thinking about the word make, and it's just something I heard from an Alan Watts talk. And he was talking about the different cultures that in the East, a child would ask their parents. They wouldn't say in the West, he'd say, "How was I made?" the child would say. But in Japan or in China, in the East, a child would say, "How was I grown?" You know, I don't know, just came up. Huh?
What's that?
Different languages,
different culture.
Expressions in different cultures.
I just can't help coming back to a pointer that resonates with me. All resistance and all conflict arises when there's, an attachment to the story of me, and every person, place or thing that creates conflict or dis-ease within me. So when I see, as Julia so beautifully pointed out, that the mind is the pairs of opposite, or the alleged mind is the pairs of opposites. Actually, it's not mind. It's just a story of me and the other, and there is actually, you can't find the mind anywhere if you look. It's just a narration about what is. But what is still going to happen, and it's the resistance and the story that separates us from what is, So I just think the mind's such an obvious, clunky thing. It's me, you, happy, sad, pleasure, pain, yesterday, tomorrow, And as Bob so beautifully pointed out, it's reality is the only thing that's constant. Everything else is transient. So every story about me, every story about the other, every story, it's just, it's just a story, and so I love that, just coming back to home, that also Julia said. You're coming back to the place you never left, and just watching the stories, just watching them like the clouds in the sky. Every now and again there'll be a fixation on something, and as Kat so beautifully said, it's an opportunity to watch. What's that fixation about,
There's a song in that. Watching the stories go by like the clouds.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a couple of comments from the online community who is watching with us, and we have just 3 more minutes, so I'm going to read the comments, and if anyone have anything, then just wrap it quickly. This is from Angel, and she says, can you elaborate on why some radical non-duality speakers say that the awareness and consciousness are still knowing a separation? I mean, I understand it's words that is still trying to describe what can't be said or described, but it is confusing. Also, is there a way I can talk to Sailor Bob privately, or the both of you? Thank you. And yes, I actually answered in that comment. Then please pop us an email on sailorbobadamson7@gmail.com, and you find that email on his website, sailorbobadamson.com as well, and we can elaborate on it deeply. And with the words, different speakers would define consciousness differently. Different speakers would define awareness differently, and they would have different words for different pointers. So don't try to reconcile. It's best to actually stay with one style of language. I heard people who, when I was still seeking, would equate awareness and consciousness. And Bob differentiated for the sake of pointing. Consciousness is aware of existence. Awareness is not. So there is awareness of separation. It doesn't apply. It all depends on the definition of the words. But we can chat on that. You can chat with Bob or both of us, whatever's easy, if you like. And I have another comment. This is from Vivek. Words, expressions are mind's play, creating divisions. Words are misleading. Without words is silence. The reality, perfection. Beautiful. And then John says, that's a long one. Let's have some fun. As always, spiritual folk forget that our objections are that our desire to be enlightened is that, absolutely. That our mid-course reactions and corrections are that. Well, we always say it's just one, it's only one. How could anything be away or apart? That is our objections are that our judgments are that. In fact, have a look at that one. Watch how that falls apart. Do we judge judgment? It is radically inclusive. It is not necessarily stuffy or safe. We become small and limited and pointlessly flexible due to small-minded interpretations of lawless spiritual pointers. Sorry. You are that means that is in your objections as much as anything else. That is as much in our so-called seeking as in the stopping of so-called seeking. Come on, you guys, let's play. Pay attention. Look at that light shining from Bob's beaming bald head.
Woo!
It's a halo, Bob. It's a halo.
Yeah,
It's a halo. It's a halo. It's just slipped down a bit.
Yes,
I think we can resonate with that, can't we?
there's a couple more. Beaming bald head. It is beaming, polished, and perfect enlightenment. If it's
He can come again.
if it's this unmodified, unaltered, and uncorrected, that this includes even the pointless separation that spiritual people make while trying to stop seeking. Sending love to all of you, including that big bald-headed dude. That's beautiful, John. Thank you. And Gilbert says, watch the mind and see how it operates. Simple. Buying into the thoughts will only lead to inadvertence. Undistracted attention is totally possible. Beautiful. Thank you. And Angel says thank you. And Tanya says thank you. Hope you all enjoy the rest of the day. And Nat says thank you, my dear Bob and Kat. And thank you, everyone.
We have
Thank
Zoom
you.
tomorrow.
And yes, we have Zoom tomorrow at,
9:30.
well, yeah, all the information is on sailorBobadamson.com/meetings. Thank you.